Hello guys, we're looking at F8. My name is Martin Jones and I am here to talk to you about F8, Audit Assurance, do's and don'ts, as you can see, do's and don'ts. Right, do learn the basics. Do learn the basics. F8, F stands for fundamental. It really is a fundamental knowledge paper. It's testing your knowledge and your application of the basics. There's no rocket science here, but you do have to be very solid with the basics. So learn the basics. Practice. F8 is so dull that it is very tempting just sort of to sit there watching me talk about audit and assurance, slowly dozing off, wandering off to make a coffee and then coming back. That doesn't work. The only way to pass F8 is for you to do it yourself. After all, you have to pass F8. I know F8. That's not the question. The question isn't do I know it, the question is do you know it? And the answer probably at the moment is no, you don't know it. So you need to practice. So I'll be working through lots of questions. You need to work through those questions yourself. I'll be working through various subjects and theory. You need to make sure that you're clear on that theory yourself. Particularly questions. You need to make sure you practice lots of questions. I do lots of questions. You then repeat those questions. Speaking of repeat, it says repeat. And when I mean repeat, I don't mean just repeat once what I'm doing. I mean repeat, repeat. So I do a question, you do it, and then you do it again. I do a question, you do it, and then you do it again. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay? Keep repeating those questions to get better and better. So any questions that I do to video, you keep repeating until you get better and better. You really will find that this repetition process, it's the strangest thing, F8. Like I've said in previous recordings, it looks so easy, but it's so difficult. But then you can get so good at it. You can get really solid at it. And it isn't rocket science, but it does take a bit of getting used to. And the more you repeat, the better you get. Coverage is my next point. Do cover the whole syllabus. It's pretty much the whole syllabus that gets examined every sitting. Strange, I get asked some daft questions like, should I not do internal audit? Well, what if internal audit comes up for 20 marks? Then you're in trouble. Should I not do planning? Well, that's guaranteed to come up. The syllabus is relatively small, so why would you leave any out? No. The examiner examines the whole of audit from beginning to end, every sitting, so you have to learn the whole syllabus. It's not a massive syllabus, but you do have to do the coverage. You don't have to be brilliant at planning. You don't have to be perfect at analytical review. But you do need to know what planning is about and how analytical review works. You need to be able to do everything, at least to a minimum level. We're coming to the exam now. Two points that I've made as regards the exam, as you can see there. One is read the question, the other one is style. F8 has this massive risk that you completely misread the requirement. You understand the scenario, but you completely misread the requirement. It asks for weaknesses in the system, and you think it's asked for weaknesses in independence, and therefore you talk a load of rubbish for 8 marks. That's right, 8 marks on weaknesses in the system, and you give 8 points as regards weaknesses in independence. It would be a very generous marker that gives you anything but 0. Audit is not difficult, but it is easy to get 0. It is easy to get 0. If you misunderstand a requirement, you get 0. So it's always important to focus on requirements. Absolutely critical to focus on requirements, but even more in F8 than other subjects. I teach P2, I teach F7, I teach other subjects as well, particularly P2, but also F7. And as we're doing F8, let's talk briefly about F7. You're very unlikely to, you could, but you're unlikely to misunderstand the requirements at F7. And in some ways that tends to make you relax about requirements because you've just done F7 and then you do F8. You think, okay, requirements are important, but, I know how. It's just not the same. really at F8, go bonkers about the requirements. If you misunderstand the scenario, it doesn't matter that much. It might matter a little bit, but not that much. But if you misunderstand the requirements, you're coming back to do this subject again. Style. The marking guide is very clear. It says 1 mark for each point. That means that for every single point that you will score, you need to make 1 point. You need to make 1 point to score 1 mark. The way to deliver it is a simple sentence with a heading. For example, if the examiner says, identify the risks in the above scenario, 5 marks, that means 5 risks. So you go risk 1, and then you talk about it for 1 sentence. Risk 2, and then you talk about it for 1 sentence. Risk 3, risk 4, risk 5. And you work your way through that. Heading, sentence, heading, sentence, heading, sentence, heading, sentence. Style is very important in F8. There's your do's. Now your don'ts. Here's a cute one. Don't just watch. Don't just watch the videos. I've mentioned this already, haven't I? Don't just watch the videos. F8 has the tendency to be incredibly boring. You need to actively learn. Don't just watch me performing and telling you how F8 works. Work through the questions yourself to make sure you really do understand it for yourself. Because F8, again, it looks much easier than it is. There's a temptation to cram the subject, to try and learn it in the last 2 weeks. Try that and you are going down like a Led Zeppelin. No, you must make sure that you study steadily over the full period, which for most of you would be 3 or 4 months. 3 or 4 months is plenty, but 1 month is not enough. It really is. It's an alien language audit, and you can't get into an alien language in 1 month, but you can in 4, because you don't need to be perfect at the alien language, but you need to be competent, and that needs 4 months. So don't cram. They're all closely related, aren't they? Don't assume that you can do F8. The two are quite closely related. Those people who cram tend to assume that they can do F8, and then they try and learn it in the last 2 weeks and find that they can't. Don't assume. Assume you can't do F8. That's the safest. Assume you can't now, and then keep testing yourself until you know that you can. You can do F8, but you can't do it now. Not until you've worked your way through the videos, not until you've learnt it properly. You can do F8, but it does require work. Last 3 points. Turning to the exam now. Don't overrun on the time. It tends to be less of a problem with F8, but it's a problem with every single examination. Don't overrun on the time. 1 mark equals 1.8 minutes. So if you've got a 10 marker, you've got 18 minutes. Stick to it. Don't under-answer. This one's staggering. The examiner says, here's a scenario. What are the risks in the above scenario? 5 marks. And some students write down 2 points. 2 points is a maximum of 2 marks, or it could be 1 mark. You're going to fail if you do that. Don't do that. Don't under-answer. If there's 5 marks, you need to make 5 points. And finally, don't just knowledge dump. Try and read the question and answer the specific question that's being set, rather than just regurgitating information. That does apply for the 10 marks of knowledge-based question 2. But for question 1, 3, 4 and 5, they're scenario-based questions. Read the requirements, analyse the scenario,